Welcome to Coaching for Creatives with Kirsten. My name is Kirsten Call. I'm a therapist-trained life coach and a children's book author. Together, we'll get the drama out of our lives and onto the page. Let's get started. You are listening to episode 63, Possible Scenarios. I once had a conversation with one of my children where they said, "Mom, I made a mistake." A download of a million possible scenarios flashed into my mind in the split second before I asked, "What happened?" Actually, who am I kidding? I've had this very same conversation with each of my 5 children more than once. Thank goodness they are sometimes willing to tell me when they've made a mistake. But back to possible scenarios. Whenever I have a conversation like this, the possible scenarios that fill my mind are not positive. Granted, when someone says they've made a mistake, that's going to lead to negative assumptions. But what if the so-called mistake leads to something beautiful? What if the mistake is exactly what needs to happen in their journey to help them become who they need to be, or to help them show up exactly in the right place at the right time? Our brains love coming up with worst-case scenarios. And life produces those struggles about 50% of the time. But the other 50% of the time is positive. So why do our thoughts go negative most of the time? Like 80% of our thoughts are negative, regardless of the situation. I've had conversations with people where they say, "I've got really great news." And still, sometimes my brain will respond in fear with thoughts like, what if the great news isn't actually great news? What if the great news isn't actually true? What if this great news causes pain because it changes or is lost in some way? Our brains love making predictions for the future also. Worst case scenarios and best case scenarios. Even thinking of best case scenarios is kind of a negative thought because when we're saying best case scenario, we are almost always believing it's highly improbable or even impossible for the best case scenario to happen. So, here are some ways to unshackle ourselves from negative possible scenarios. Number 1, first we need to notice our mind is focusing on negative possible scenarios. Of course, we cannot unshackle ourselves from negative thoughts we aren't aware we're thinking. So that's the first step. Notice and tell yourself you're going to explore some other possibilities. Number 2, separate certainties from uncertainties. Some things are certain and some are not. Most possible scenarios are just that, possibilities, not actual real certainties. Number 3, remind yourself these thoughts are just stories. Those negative scenarios are just stories your brain is telling you. They are not truth. They are not reality. They aren't actually predicting a real future. Number 4, give equal time to positive scenarios. This one is tough, but when you notice yourself spiraling in negative scenario space, stop. Maybe pick up a pad of paper and write down some positive scenarios. Explore every good possibility you can think of, which leads me to number 5. Number 5, ask yourself, what are some possible, really good things that could come of this situation? For example, when my child says they made a mistake, I could think something like, this will be an opportunity to learn and perhaps not make the same mistake again. Or I could think, I'm so grateful this child is talking to me about their mistakes right now. I know as a kid, I had a really hard time doing that with my parents. So this is actually a really, really good conversation. Or I could think, nothing has gone wrong here. I make mistakes every day, and I'm still standing. So, next time you get a rejection from an agent or editor, instead of wallowing in the what ifs and allowing your mind to think things like, what if I never get an agent? What if I never get published? Redirect your mind. And remember, failure lives in the neighborhood of success. Rejection is part of the journey to any creative masterpiece. And as you explore all the possible scenarios, know that you are capable of harnessing the positive. And you are worthy of the very best scenarios you can dream up. Until next time, Keep smiling. If you like what you've heard, check out my Get Yourself Unstuck program. Go to KirstenCall.com. That's KirstineCall.com and schedule a free consultation today. Coaching for Creatives is produced by Kirsten Call. Music and audio engineering by James Call.